This kid made poker history. This is Joe Cada, otherwise known as Joe Cada 99, or The Kid, an online poker player who just lost over $150,000 playing poker. So what does he decide to do? Sign up to play poker at the highest stakes against the best players from all over the world, including the legendary Phil Ivey. In the next few minutes, you're going to witness one of the most incredible runs in poker history. So stick around until the end because the final hand of this tournament, it's not just shocking, it's absolutely insane. Even the commentators couldn't believe what they were seeing. This is the story of how a broke 21-year-old with a dream became a poker legend. Welcome to the 2009 World Series of Poker final table, packed with 8 of the world's best with a combined total of over $78 million in live tournament winnings. And the 9th player at the table? You guessed it, our boy Joe Cada. And in this first face-off, he went head-to-head with tournament chip leader Darvin Moon. Sitting in the cutoff position, Cada made a bold move, choosing to raise, but the young American is known for his fearless style. Holding a strong hand with aces up, Moon called the raise, setting the stage for a dramatic showdown. The flop came 4-8-9 with 2 clubs, and Joe saw an opportunity.
Cada bets like he's got an ace, $1.4 million.
Darvin knows Cada could be making a semi-bluff here. It's possible he's on a flush or straight draw. I gotta believe Darvin thinks his ace is best. He's got a pair of aces with a decent kicker.
Does Darvin want to come over the top, as we have seen him do numerous times? Nope, just a call.
However, Moon's experience and composure is hard to beat. The 21-year-old attempted a bluff, betting heavily to represent a strong hand, but Moon saw right through it.
He's got that Jake LaMotta look to him, and he's gonna fight back with a big raise.
Darvin Moon trying to take a bite out of young Joe Cada's stack.
$5.5 million.
Cada comes back over the top, a raise to $5.5 million.
What did I tell you? I had this hand cased. Cada's got the better hand. Darvin probably knows at this point that his aces up aren't any good.
$3 million to Moon.
Darvin Moon ought to be careful right here.
Trying to get a read on Joe Cada.
Call.
A call from Moon.
Disagrees with me.
Darvin Moon shows his aces up. Joe Cada, what do you got?
Oh, I don't like Joe's look there.
6 tray of clubs.
Cada lost nearly $8 million when the chips were counted, an enormous blow to his stack. Joe was left reeling. The early mistake against Moon was a harsh reminder of the stakes. His chip count dwindled and his confidence was clearly thrown off. The young gun from Michigan was on the ropes. And just when it seemed things couldn't get worse, Cada found himself in another critical moment, this time against Jeff Shulman, an experienced and calculated opponent. With his chip stack already suffering, Joe needed a win to stay in the game. Holding ace-jack, he faced a tough decision as Shulman went all in with ace-king, a stronger hand in every way.
All in.
Shulman, the short stack, moves all in for just over $7 million.
Shulman has played very few pots today.
Ivey folds king-queen. Begleiter folds. Buckman lays it down. Now Cada asks for an exact count.
The harsh truth became clear as the cards were revealed. Cada was dominated. The commentators couldn't hide their concern, though it was far too late for second-guessing. The crowd, dressed in yellow to support Cada, held their breath. Every poker player dreads this scenario, facing an all-in against a dominant hand. It was a critical moment that could make or break his tournament. After carefully counting Shulman's stack, just over 7 million chips, Cada called.
Jeff Shulman would be at risk here if Cada calls. If Cada calls here and loses, he would be crippled.
I call.
He does make the call with ace-jack.
The decision was bold, but would it pay off? His mom watched on in pain, the dream of her son becoming a World Series of Poker main event champion slipping away. The flop came down 3-10-9, a neutral set of cards that offered Cada no help. The tension grew as the turn revealed a queen, giving both players straight draws, but leaving Shulman firmly in the lead. Then came the river, a 4 of diamonds. The hand was over, and with it nearly all of Joe's chips. He was left with 5 big blinds, teetering on the brink of elimination. The atmosphere in the theater shifted. Cada's supporters fell silent, their earlier enthusiasm replaced by concern. It looked like the end of the road for Joe.
Shulman doesn't look happy, but he should be. Cada devastated, down under 3 million chips.
There is no joy in Cadatown. The 21-year-old is left with only 5 big blinds, and his chance at poker history is on life support.
But little did they know, the greatest comeback in poker history was about to begin. The next hand went fast. Schulman, holding 6-5 offsuit, folded without much thought. Steadily climbing with calculated moves, Phil Ivey picked up ace-8 offsuit and raised it up to $1.25 million. The rest of the table folded, leaving Joe with a decision. Sitting in the small blind, Cada glanced at his pocket fours and felt the weight of the moment. He knew playing it safe wasn't an option if he wanted to stay in the game. With Phil Ivey's aggressive playstyle dominating the table, he decided it was time to take a stand against the GOAT. He pushed all in, risking everything on a pair of fours. It was all or nothing.
Joe Cada short stacked.
All in.
And it is time to get aggressive for Cada. All in with those fours.
How much is it?
This would cost Ivey about 1/3 of his chip stack.
Ivey studied his opponent carefully. The young player's aggressive push suggested he might be sitting on a strong hand, but Ivey couldn't shake the idea that it was a calculated bluff. After a tense pause, he made the call, putting both their tournament fates on the line in a dramatic showdown.
A crossroads moment for Ivey and Cada. Cada, of course, can be knocked out. Ivey can pick up some valuable chips, or he'll be back down under 20 big blinds.
How could I fold? Yeah, I know. I was wondering why you took so long. I was trying to figure out a way to fold.
A reluctant call from Ivey, who's in danger of being bounced back to his starting stack.
The cards were revealed, and Joe couldn't stay seated. He stood up, his legs trembling slightly, hands gripping the back of his chair as his tournament life hung in the balance. His pocket fours were ahead of Ivey's ace-8, but in poker, being ahead doesn't mean being safe. The rail grew quiet as the dealer prepared to deal the flop. Cada's girlfriend Elena could barely watch, covering her eyes as the 3 community cards came down. The flop came 10-3 deuce, missing Ivey completely. A collective exhale came from Joe's supporters, but any ace or 8 would still end their hero's run. The turn brought a 9, and Cada began bobbing back and forth like a boxer avoiding punches. Ivey, stone-faced as ever, waited for his last chance at river salvation. One card would either cement Cada's comeback or end his dream of becoming the youngest champion ever.
Cada trying to hang on. Ivey trying to pick up some steam.
Ivey looking for help, and Phil Ivey needs an ace or an 8 to end Joe Cada's bid to become youngest main event champ ever.
As the dealer flipped the river card, it landed as a 7. The fours held strong. The roar from the crowd was deafening. He'd done it. He'd survived and doubled up, beating Phil Ivey and climbing to over 12 million chips. The legend of the comeback kid was being written before our very eyes. His yellow-clad rail started the familiar chant of Joe, Joe, Joe.
And a bump in the road just knocked Phil under 10 million chips and sent the Cada contingent into a frenzy.
A small smile crossed his face as Cada stacked his newly won chips. He'd stared into the abyss, faced down one of poker's greatest players, and emerged stronger. He'd shown that he belonged at this table, that age was just a number, and that in poker, anything's possible. The following hours saw the field gradually thin. Phil Ivey, despite his legendary status, couldn't overcome the mounting blinds and departed in 7th place.
Phil Ivey staring elimination right in the face.
Ivey needs a king and a king only, or his 2009 main event is over.
River card is a 5, and that will do it. Phil Ivey eliminated in 7th place from this 2009 main event.
Darvin slays Goliath.
James Akinhead's tournament life ended shortly after. His dreams of glory cut short in 6th place. Each elimination brought the remaining players closer to poker immortality, the tension in the room becoming almost unbearable. Then came the moment that made everyone's breath catch in their throat. The tournament director called for attention as men in black suits entered the Penn and Teller Theater, each carrying sleek briefcases.
Here we go again. It's that unique moment we look forward to each and every year at the main event final table.
We get to take in cases home with us.
The players can look, but they can't touch. Not yet.
A lot of money on the line, so good luck to everyone, though, by the way.
$8.5 million is now here in the Penn and Teller Theater.
Pass it my way.
It is an unbelievable sight, and perhaps a little extra pressure for the 5 remaining players. The stakes are literally set on the table.
Inside lay $8.5 million in cash, more than most people see in a lifetime. The players watched as the fortune was placed on display, a tangible reminder of what they were battling for. The sight of the money added an extra layer of tension, the stakes now visibly higher for everyone left at the table. The atmosphere grew heavier with each hand. 2 players were eventually eliminated, narrowing the field to the final 3.
$8.5 million and a world championship await one of our three remaining players. Will it be Darvin Moon, Joe Cada, or Antoine Saout? But for Eric Buckman, it just wasn't meant to be.
Joe Cada had defied the odds once again, carving his path to the final three alongside Darvin Moon and Antoine Saout. His decisions had paid off, earning him a seat among the last standing. Despite his growing confidence, Cada knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Darvin Moon, with his steady and cautious play, had proven to be a formidable opponent, rarely making mistakes. On the other side, Antoine Saout, the composed and calculated Frenchman, held the chip lead and the momentum. Joe knew that both men posed significant threats, and any mistake could be his last. The stakes were sky high as the next hand began. Now brimming with confidence, Cada found pocket deuces in the small blind and raised. Saout, seated in the big blind, revealed pocket queens, a monster hand in this crucial moment. He re-raised, trying to assert dominance, but Cada wasn't backing down. He moved all in, risking it all. The tension was palpable. Saout called, and the cards were on their backs. Cada's pocket deuces looked weak against Saout's queens. Yet poker is a game of moments, and the flop delivered one in dramatic fashion. A deuce appeared, giving Joe a set and shocking the crowd.
Here's the flop. Oh! A deuce for Cada. He gets the set.
Unbelievable for Joe Cada.
The turn and river did not help Saout, and Cada doubled up again, reclaiming the chip lead and cementing his comeback.
Like Joe Cada should be 100 miles away now with no chips. He keeps coming back, and now he's about to become the chip leader.
Saout now the one looking for a miracle. Darvin thinking heads up, may have to wait.
Cada needs to dodge a queen to double up.
River card is a 6, and yet another big double up for Joe Cada. And with that one comes the chip lead.
As the next hand was dealt, Joe looked down at ace-king, a strong hand reflecting his newfound dominance. Now on the back foot with pocket eights, Saout moved all in. Moon folded, and Cada quickly called, setting the stage for another dramatic clash. The flop came 5-4-5, offering no immediate help to Cada. Visibly anxious, he stood up from his chair and worked to his supporters for strength. The turn was a 10, and Saout's eights still held strong. With each passing moment, the $8.5 million prize seemed to slip further away. His fans in yellow shirts held their breath as the dealer prepared for the river card. That final card turned over slowly. The theater erupted as Cada, against all odds, had done it again, jumping up with joy as his nervous pacing turned into a celebration.
Joe Cada did it again!
I just saw it! I don't believe it!
You played very well. It should have been you, Cada said sincerely, walking over to shake Saout's hand. The Frenchman nodded in appreciation, accepting both the compliment and defeat with dignity. The two young players embraced briefly, sharing a moment of mutual respect that ended their fierce competition. Antoine Saout's impressive run ended with grace, and the focus turned to the final two as he exited third place, securing a well-earned $3.4 million. With all eyes now on the massive stacks of cash, Joe Cada and Darvin Moon prepared for the final showdown, each determined to claim the ultimate prize. Cada began heads-up play with a commanding chip lead of nearly $136 million, while Moon started with $59 million. Despite his limited heads-up experience, Moon's relentless spirit had brought him this far, and he wasn't about to back down. The very first hand set the tone for what would be an unforgettable showdown. Moon was dealt pocket queens, a formidable hand. Cada, holding pocket nines, raised to $3.2 million. Moon, confident yet cautious, merely called. The flop came 3-king deuce, missing both players. Undeterred, Cada bet $3.5 million, only to face a hefty raise to $10 million from Moon. Cada called, leading to a turn card of an ace, introducing yet another overcard. Both players checked, and the river revealed another king. With nerves of steel, Moon checked, and Cada followed suit. Moon flipped his queens, claiming the pot and making an emphatic statement. The hands continued, each more intense than the last. With King-Jack, Joe tried to assert his dominance against Darvin's Queen-8. The flop brought Cada top pair, but Moon's queen would find its mate on the turn. Through clever trap setting and impeccable timing, Moon turned his paired queen into a winning hand, extending the lead and leaving Cada to turn to his rail in frustration, as if asking, "What do I do with this guy?"
Moon missed that flop.
You know, I priced some lawnmowers at Sears. Even if he gets her a really nice Craftsman front-propelled rear bag mower, that's only going to set him back $379.99.
He said he's got to build the garage to house it, though. Moon checked. Cada bets $3.5 million with his jacks.
Raise.
And a raise announced from Darvin. Aggression comes pretty easily to this guy. He makes it $8.5 million.
Now, riding mower, you're talking 4 figures, but I don't think he's talking a riding mower.
So a big test to young Joe Cada here. And he makes the call for $5 million.
Yeah, Cada thinks he's ahead. Darvin says sometimes he bets like hell when he's got it. Sometimes he bets like hell when he doesn't.
Moon pairs his queen on the turn to turn this hand upside down, and he checks top pair.
Well, Darvin didn't have it. Now he does have it, and he doesn't bet.
And Cada checks behind him. Wise check. River card is a deuce. Moon with the check mark again. And he will bet it. It's about 1/3 the pot, $7.25 million.
I love Darvin's check on the turn. It might get his value bet here paid off.
Cada has a pair of jacks.
I call.
Joe makes the call. Darvin turns over the pair of queens, and with that pot, Moon is once again the chip leader at the main event.
And Cada shows his jack and some frustration.
After a short break, the game resumed with both players refreshed but determined. They exchanged brief compliments, acknowledging each other's skill and resilience as the dealer began shuffling the cards for one last time.
Made it longer than I thought we would. I figured you'd have me on the rail by now.
Playing well. You're playing really well.
Thanks. You are too.
Joe, holding Jack-9 offsuit, raised to $3 million. Darvin, with 8-7 of spades, called. The flop came 10-5-9, giving Cada a middle pair and Moon an open-ended straight draw. Both checked cautiously, feeling the tension. The turn brought another 10, prompting Cada to bet $3 million. Moon, not one to back down, shoved all in.
The flop is 10-5-9. Cada hits a pair of nines. Moon an up and down straight draw. Darvin checks. Joe checks middle pair. Turn card now is another 10. Cada still ahead.
We've seen the same pattern from Joe Cada. I think he keeps trying to get Darvin to be overly aggressive.
Darvin's just going to check it. And he does. $3 million.
He sat on his hand on the flop, decides to pull the trigger here.
Darvin giving this some thought.
I'm all in.
Moves all in. That's enough to put Cada all in.
Wow.
The room held its breath. Joe really thought about this one, his instincts honed in from countless online games. Could Moon have a 10? Trusting his read, he called. Moon revealed his draw, and Joe's pair of nines held as the river blanked.
Asking Joe Cada if he's willing to risk his main event right now. If I'm Joe Cada, I'd have a hard time believing Darvin has a 10 in his hand, making that raise. But then again, this is for everything.
I call.
Cada makes the call. What a read by the young gun. And this puts Joe Cada in position to retake control of this matchup.
With just middle pair, Joe Cada makes the tough call, and what a call it was.
Darvin Moon's over-aggressive play may be handing the reins back to Joe Cada.
The crowd erupted, a thunderous cheer filling the air as the gravity of the moment hit both players. Cada's bold call shifted the momentum, yet both players exchanged mutual respect. Good bluff, great call, Moon admitted. Cada, in turn, praised Moon's tenacity.
The river card is a tray! Joe Cada doubles up. So the tables are turned on this heads-up match again. Darvin Moon, the shorter stack. Joe Cada in charge.
It's good bluff, though. It was good semi-bluff.
Good call, Joe. Good
It's
call.
good play. Honestly, you're playing awesome.
It's fun. It's fun for me. I'm learning so much off you.
In what would become the final hand of the tournament, Cada looked down at pocket nines, a hand that had already been lucky for him a couple times at this final table. Moon, holding Queen Jack of Diamonds, showed the aggression that had carried him this far. After Cada's initial raise to $3 million, Moon made it $8 million to go. But Joe wasn't done. He moved all in, putting Moon to the ultimate test. After some thought, Moon made the call.
Joe needs 5 to call.
All in.
Now Cada is the aggressor, trying to put Darvin Moon all in.
And now it's Darvin's moment of truth. Is he willing to risk it all here?
Call.
And Darvin makes the call with his suited queen jack.
Wow, Darvin plays by different rules, and he makes that all-in call for $64 million.
It was pocket nines against queen jack of diamonds. The flop came 8-7 deuce, clean for Cada's nines. Relax, relax, chanted Cada's supporters, a mantra that had carried him through so many crucial moments. The turn brought a king, giving Moon additional outs with overcards, but still leaving the 21-year-old in the lead.
And here is the flop. 8-7. That is a good flop for Joe Cada.
Darvin takes it in stoically. Cada can't look.
Relax. I'm relaxed.
That chant has gotten Cada through so many difficult moments. And now the turn card. It's a king. That's the only paint Darvin doesn't have.
One card away from poker history, everyone held their breath. Moon needed a queen or a jack to stay alive.
Day 3, Cada jokingly told Peter Eastgate he would break his record. Now he's one card away from doing it. Darvin Moon needs a queen or a jack, or Joe Cada will be the main event champ.
And that 7 will end it. Joe Cada rewrites poker history, becoming the youngest main event champ ever.
Darvin Moon, despite falling short, earned the respect and admiration of everyone in the room for his incredible journey. As Joe Cada lifted the WSOP bracelet high, the theater echoed with cheers and applause, marking the end of a thrilling final table that would go down in history. But if you thought Joe Cada's poker comeback was insane, you haven't seen anything yet. Some plays at the poker table are so insanely high IQ, you just can't understand how they pulled it off. So check out this video right here to see the most high IQ calls, reads, and folds ever recorded.